Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. This is your host, Howard Fox. The Outdoor Adventure Series celebrates individuals and families, businesses, and organizations that seek out and promote the exploration, stewardship, conservation, and access to and enjoyment of the outdoors. Our guest today is Vanessa Russell. Vanessa and her husband and their young daughter live the RV lifestyle full time. They are Vanessa, and we'll find out about her husband, but they are freelance travel writers. They create content for Go RV and RV Destination magazine. And I am just so excited to introduce you to Vanessa because I have this dream of being out in an RV recording my podcast. So I have an ulterior motive here. So Vanessa, It's great to meet you. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thanks so much for having me, Howard. I appreciate it.
Fantastic. Now, I was asking Vanessa because my memory with my age, I don't like to talk about my age, but I was thinking, now, how did we meet? And I think Vanessa was sharing, well, Howard, I think we met on LinkedIn. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense because I'm an active LinkedIn user. But that's the power of social media, and here we are. I think we could probably spend a couple hours talking about RV lifestyle, and I'm on
Yeah.
YouTube a lot and listen to videos. But first off, tell us a little background of you, Scott, and you've got a young child. I have to ask if you have a pet, but we'll do that. But how did you get into this RV lifestyle? Where did you start?
It probably seemed like we lost our mind, actually, Howard. Okay, so go back in time to about 2014. And I always say this because it's hard to imagine, but now it's kind of commonplace to see young working couples and even families full-time RVing. But
Mhm.
back then, not at all. That was a really crazy thing. And there weren't a lot of resources to try to figure this out. So it was a kind of a very wild idea that we had at the time. But back in about 2014, I had a friend of mine that also had a family and homeschooled. And she broke the news to me one day at lunch that she was taking her two kids and her husband, and they were selling their dream home that they had recently moved to. And they were going to buy an RV and travel across the country full time. And I thought, are you okay? Like,
What
are
were you
you in
thinking?
financial turmoil, or is your marriage okay? Like, are you all right? And she laughed and she said, yeah, I learned that there were some young people with families traveling. And I just think that we have to give it a go for a year. And I thought, okay, that's really interesting. And then the next thing I knew, I was online starting to research how do families do this? Could we maybe do that? And I started the rabbit trail of what full-time RVing looks like when you're still working and when you
Mhm.
have children in tow that need schooling and various things. And like, is this even possible? How is she going to do this? And as soon as I started that rabbit trail, it hooked me in a little bit. And
Okay.
I was secretly researching and planning, never shared anything with my husband because we had this typical suburban life going. I was
Mhm.
already a stay-at-home mom with our daughter. I actually was already planning on homeschooling. So that
Okay.
wasn't too huge of a stretch, but we were typical suburban couple. And then all of a sudden, here I am nighttime dreaming of this getting rid of everything. And we had just built our dream home as well, thinking
Oh
we were
boy.
going to stay in it forever. Right. And one day I just told him, I said, I think we should sell every single thing we own and we should buy an RV. And he said, are you kidding? And then he said, are you okay? Because this is the funny thing, Howard. We had never camped before. I
Yeah.
mean, like ever. Not in a tent, not in an RV, not in a campground, like period. We've just never done it. So
Mhm.
to say, hey, let's just make this our life when we had zero experience seemed a little bit crazy.
Okay.
But
So,
that's what we did.
okay. I mean, there's just a lot to unpack here.
Right.
As a professional coach, I'm always very curious. I ask a lot of curiosity-based questions.
Sure.
And as you began to explore, and I have no doubt you went down the rabbit hole because YouTube does that when you
Yeah.
start doing your research
Yeah.
and other web pages. What was it like to this aha moment, like, let's go ahead and do this? And when you're actually ready to flip the switch, the house is for sale, we have to go look for an RV. And what did that feel like to you?
It was really scary. Like,
Yeah.
I always had the feeling that I wanted more, but I could never put my finger on what that feeling meant. But I always
Mm,
felt like there were more experiences that we could have as a family,
mhm,
that there was more time we could spend together. It just never felt like there was enough money left over after the house and all the normal bills to travel as much as we liked. We took little short weekend type trips around our state, but it wasn't ever like large trips as a family. And I just always kind of had this feeling like there should be something more that affords us a little bit more time and memories together. But I
okay,
didn't know what it was. So I think at that point that my friend said, "Hey, this is an option." I think that was like ding, ding, ding in my
okay.
brain, something went off. So then it became a big financial question, right? Because it's
Mhm,
like, how do you go from 2 cars, a big house, and a full time job to none of that and make that work? And so that's when
mhm,
it was like I started crunching numbers and I'm like, well, honestly, if we didn't have a huge house payment, 2 car payments, we could probably float it on the little small business that we had at the time. So I
mhm,
thought some of that was number crunching and figuring out that.
mhm,
But then at the time that it came to actually sell my car
mm,
and his truck, so we still had the house at this point. But the first step that we did was we thought, okay, we're going to sell. He had a truck and I had an SUV. We're going to sell both to
mhm.
purchase the big dually truck that was going to haul our future fifth wheel.
Oh,
And
okay.
I pull up to the car dealership to trade in my car and his truck to buy the dually, and I'm sobbing in the parking lot. And the salesman was like, "Aren't you so excited to buy this brand new truck? Or why are they so upset?" He probably thought I was out of my mind too. And I'm like, "Because I know you don't understand what we're going through, but I know that this is the step that we're not going back at this
Right.
point. When we let go of our vehicles and we come home with this huge new truck, it's off."
Okay.
And so
So,
that was a crazy moment right there.
okay. So what I heard is you started off with a fifth wheel. So you
Mhm.
didn't start off with a small RV. And, again, I don't know how old your
The
daughter is or
big
how
one.
old she was when you started, but you
Yeah.
actually s- are you still in this? Well, you're 9 years out or 10 years out. So
Hmm.
I imagine you've replaced the fifth
Yeah.
wheel.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we started with one big honking fifth wheel, 40 foot, and then now we're
Mhm.
in another one that's 41. Yeah.
Okay, 40 to 41. Yeah, see,
Hmm.
I'm taking notes for myself. I'm
Hmm.
single. It's
Yeah.
it's just the way things worked out.
Yeah.
But okay, so you're getting ready to you are a stay-at-home mom. You're
Hmm.
homeschooling your child. What's Scott doing?
So
What
he
was
was
his job?
regular full time job. So our daughter was about 5 at this point. So we were
Okay,
getting ready to actually, she turned 6, like I think literally a couple weeks before we left town on our
okay,
big adventure. So we were homeschooling light. We weren't in kindergarten yet. And so literally now she's in high school. So
okay.
we have spanned the whole, what we call them road schooling. A lot of us call it road schooling,
Road
but our
schooling.
homeschooling on the road has spanned everything from kindergarten to high school. And that is crazy. But of course, because we had her, that's why we ended up with the large fifth wheel so that she could have her own bunk room. And the
Right.
first one, she had her own bathroom as well. And so that kind of
Okay.
precipitated getting a big one. But I
Okay.
wouldn't recommend that, to be honest with you, unless you have a huge need for that
Right.
much space, because it's very cumbersome and limiting, like at times where you can stay
Right.
during your adventures. So there's
Okay.
pros and cons to that for sure.
Okay. What was it like to learn how to drive the truck and the fifth wheel? Because that to me, that's
Mm,
I mean, I'm a ding, 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 ding. Oh boy, am I ready for
yeah.
this? I mean, there's
Yeah.
certain things at my age I'm not going to do. I'm never going to jump out of an airplane. I will go scuba diving because I've done it before, so I have memory of it. I'm never going to go down slaloms on a ski slope. And
Right.
I would have to say a big truck, which I could see myself driving, but a fifth wheel, that there's something about that that seems daunting. What was
Yeah.
that like to learn how to do that? to drive it?
Luckily for us, Scott had a side job when we were younger where he washed semi trucks on the side.
Okay.
So he
Okay.
moved trucks regularly to do that. So he, while not being trained to do so, it was kind of a little kind of side thing, but he had a little bit of experience maneuvering that. We also owned a lawn service for a while. And so he
Okay.
had experience with towing a flat trailer with lawn equipment behind
Okay.
a non-dually truck, but still a
Okay.
long bed. So we'd had some experiences for him with that. Now,
Mhm.
like for me, I've never driven it. I would be scared to drive it. I wouldn't necessarily say a fifth wheel is the way to go because it
Okay.
is a lot more work. It works when you need additional living space. Here's
Mhm.
the thing about finding the right RV to full time. And honestly, that could be a whole episode because it's an insane process. But you either are choosing A, comfortable driving days or B, comfortable living days. But you
Mhm.
will never find an RV that's truly both
That's good
because
to know.
a class A, a class B, or a class C, a drivable will be your comfortable driving days. Easy to maneuver, easier to park, even the big ones. They're just easier to manage.
Mhm.
But they're not going to be humongous home-like living spaces inside, even the large ones. They feel very RV. Okay. But
Mhm.
if you get the reason why fifth wheels, towables are so popular is they're less expensive
Mhm.
usually, and they have very large home-like spaces. Like we went that route because we had 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms in the first one, right? So you're
Mhm.
not really going into a motorhome situation and having there's some that have some nice little bunk rooms and things, but it's not going to be this very living like space. So it's like the fifth wheel is great when you're parked, but it's kind of stressful driving and maneuvering, right? And getting
Okay.
into campgrounds and backing into campsites. So you really kind of have to evaluate would you want comfortable driving, parking, maneuvering, or do you want to stay long time in one
Mhm.
spot maybe, and you want
Mhm.
more comfortable living space? So you
Right.
never get both. It's tricky,
Well, that's good to know, and I'm glad you have shared that because again, I'm thinking opportunistically.
right?
I do my coaching is pretty much all online. My
Okay.
podcasting, though, I do a lot of in-person podcasting when I'm able to, but like today, this is an online episode. So essentially, I can do my work anywhere in the world. And so and I also don't want to drive around looking for a new place to put my RV. So I
Hmm.
definitely would look for whatever combination it was that would allow me to stay in one place, which I'm thinking that's kind of what you have done because you need that stability for working with your daughter and teaching, and you also run a business. So
Hmm.
it's not like you can continually be on the road looking for a place to park, looking for a good internet connection and the like.
Balancing act. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely balancing act. Yeah.
As you
So yeah, if you stay long term in one
Yeah.
area, then having a towable is a great idea because you have so much more expanded living space. So yeah,
Mm,
there's definitely some things to consider there.
okay. Now, what has been like the biggest challenges or surprises? That's probably a better word for you, Scott, perhaps your daughter,
Mhm.
as you kind of look back on this life you have created. I mean, what have been some of those aha moments like, wow.
Right. Most people, there is a lot of challenges with full time RVing that most people don't realize until you get into it. And there's a lot more joys to full time RVing that most people don't realize. So
Hmm.
I'll start with the negative and I'll go to the positive. Most people think that RV living is just kind of an extended vacation, right? Especially those who already RV travel. They're used
Hmm.
to taking a week or two or weekends and enjoying it. And they're thinking, well, if I lived it, right, and this, it would just be like this all the time. And that's probably the biggest misconception because when you're a full-time RVer, you have all of the work involved in traveling, planning all the trips, all the travel days, all the maintenance, all the regular tasks that you would have with your RV, but you still have all of your daily living tasks of
Hmm.
doing your laundry and paying the bills and medical and grocery shopping and all of those things get piled in too. So while it's amazing and some of the days on the road really still feel like vacation and adventure, there's an equal amount of time probably spent on the road that is just daily living tasks,
Hmm.
right? Especially if you work on the road or you homeschool, you're spending a lot of time just doing normal living things. So it's not like every day go on to the next location and every day is spent hiking in national parks and campfires every night. It's
Mhm.
like that sometimes, of course, but it's
Yeah.
not like that all the time. And so I always tell people that there is a lot of work to full-time RVing, because just like planning a trip at home, you
Hmm.
think of all the work that you spend to plan that trip. Imagine
Yeah.
if you did that nonstop.
Right.
The next trip
Yeah.
and the next trip and the next trip. It's a nonstop process. So you're always planning the next reservations and what you're going to do there and where you're going
Hmm.
to stay and your route to get there that's safe for your RV. So it's like being a travel agent
Yeah.
and a maintenance man, because RVs unfortunately break all the time. So
Right.
you need
Okay.
to be a little handy or have a budget to hire someone else. But there's a lot of work involved in maintaining your RV. So it's not like living on vacation. That's probably the first spoiler that most people realize when they get on the road, and that you can't go so fast. You kind of have to slow things down. But the second
Mm-hmm.
spoiler is that is the cost of full-time RV. So
Mm-hmm.
on paper, it's funny because you're like, okay, well, now I don't have my mortgage to pay for. Now I'm paying for my RV and my travel expenses, and this all looks like it should be a lot less. And where some people it is, especially if you're coming from a higher price housing market or
Hmm.
whatnot, there's a lot
Right.
of variables there. But for a lot of people, it's not. A lot of people, it's about the same as living in a house. And
Okay.
sometimes it can even be a little bit more. It just depends what you're going through. And the reason why that is because now you've got really high gas prices and you
Right.
have high camping fees, depending on where you like to stay. So some people get around that by boondocking a lot, utilizing free camping,
Hmm.
traveling a lot slower, spending
Hmm.
more time on each stop. So there are ways to minimize your costs on that. But the reality is that the repairs are sneaky. Mentioned that already.
Yeah.
And it's often kind of more like about the same cost as living in a
Okay.
house. So
That's good to know. That's good to
yeah.
know. So let's have a couple joys.
Yes, and the joys are interesting. So while you think that the travel locations may be the biggest joys, and they are, another amazing joy is the people that you meet on the road.
Right. I knew you were going
Because
to say that.
right? And that surprised me a little bit, because there is no place in this life that you're surrounded by people all the time with your same hobby. And
Right.
that's what camping is. When you're in a campground, all of your neighbors are campers,
Hmm.
and they all like the similar things that you do. It almost feels to me like a camping family, I guess, if you
Sure.
will. And that's a surprising feeling, because there's no other time in life that you would be surrounded by people that only like similar things to you. And so it's really easy, if you want to make connections with other travelers and kind of form that bond. And so that's something that was surprising. That's really good. The other
Okay.
thing that's super surprising is the quality of memory that you make together. Like you think,
Sure.
okay, we might go to this park, we might take a hike, we might do this, but sometimes the plans spiral into so many adventures you don't plan on, right? Nothing is
Right.
ever set in stone when you're on the road. There's a lot of variables that pop up. But some
Mhm.
of the adventures that you end up having are so epic that it's those family stories you're going to have your whole life, and not
Right.
you'll always have that together. And so I think that's those memories are what makes it worth it when your RV's broken, when your budget's taxing, when it's a lot of work and you're tired and you don't want to go to the next campground. That's what keeps you going.
Yeah. Very cool. I am curious about time management, and because you have a business, your expertise is in marketing and
Mhm.
website SEO, and you're running this business of, helping others who want to get into this lifestyle. How do you and Scott manage making a living, also the homeschooling of your daughter, and other time management factors that come into play? How do you manage all that?
Right. I stink at time management. To be honest with you, Howard, I'm not the
Okay.
greatest time manager. So I'm probably the poor person to give this advice. I keep all the balls in the air, but there's probably a lot more slick answer to this question than what I'm going to give you. It's a balancing act. So when my daughter was young on the homeschooling end, it was very easy because I mentioned we do something called road schooling. Road
Hmm.
schooling is basically learning a lot from your travels. So
Okay.
versus having so much set curriculum in place, a lot of times our learning would be at the museum, on in nature at the national park, through a ranger program, through some hands-on demonstration at the state park. There's a lot of travel learning happening as your curriculum. So that kind of calms down the homeschooling schedule just a little bit. So we would utilize every minute that we have like off time for doing school. And that's very similar to work environment. So if you can set your own schedule while you work on the road, that is optimal because then you can cram work in wherever there's time. Same thing with
Okay.
homeschool, if you can be flexible with it. So, like for our family, and even still today, we'll pick the weekdays, and during the day, we'll go out exploring and have our adventures. And then you'll find us working or doing school at night, either
Okay.
early in the morning or at night or all weekend long. And that's because we want to go low crowds when we can and have those experiences when it's quiet. And then in the car. So, like on the way to the next destination or the next campground, it's a great time to do school and catch up on work. So, if you have a very flexible personality, which
Hmm.
I mentioned to you, I'm very fly by the seat of my pants,
Hmm. Okay.
then it really helps you with this lifestyle because then you can just squeeze things in when you need to. If you're very regimented on time, then it may be that you travel on the weekends and you stay put and work on the weekdays, and you might have to move slower and stay every place longer and just
Hmm.
adjust to what you need. So it really depends on your business and your personality, how fast you will travel and how much you care to mix up your schedule. But we're kind of all over the place. I just squeeze stuff in wherever there's a minute and keep on rolling. So yeah,
Okay.
I would say
Okay.
I would say it's up to you how you set your pace for
Okay.
things.
Okay. And it's not a gotcha question, but you mentioned
Mhm.
the word car. So besides the truck and the fifth wheel, do you also have a vehicle?
Mm-mm. And that's
No.
hard. That is our
Okay.
only vehicle. Now, there's a lot of people that travel full time that have a
Okay.
second vehicle, and there's huge amounts of pros and cons to that
Right.
because the dually. This is the tricky part of getting a large towable. You get stuck with the dually, and that's
Right.
your vehicle. You have to have it for the stability and for the towing aspect, but it's a terrible daily driver to have a
Right.
dually. I mean,
Yeah.
parking it a lot of places is a bear, and then there's limitations. Like there's times where we couldn't take all these scenic drives in places we were because there's size limitations. You can't drive up the mountain. There's
Right.
a lot of times where that will limit you.
Okay.
However, if you choose to get a second car, which a lot of people do on the road, now you're a little bit limited in campground parking. And
Right.
so you're trying to fit two vehicles in a campsite, which is already tricky, especially if you
Right.
have a larger RV. So neither way is super easy, but that's another reason why a drivable is sometimes preferable because a
Okay.
drivable, you can tow a small car behind you. That's your
Right.
vehicle. It's easy to get around town. And so there's definitely some pros and cons when it comes to thinking about the tow vehicle.
Okay. I recorded an episode earlier in the year with a woman. She's in the real estate space, nonprofit real estate, and she lives full time in her, I think it's a class C where the bed
Mhm.
is over the cab. I think it's over the
Yeah.
cab.
Yeah.
And she does not have a car, but she had a trailer in the back which stored her bike. So
Oh,
wherever she
yeah.
was at, she had a bike. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That
But
is really cool.
I do appreciate what you're sharing because I'm thinking, okay, we're a lot of times it's like, do I want to pick door number one or door number two? I gotta go
Right.
through gate number
Right.
one or gate number two. So
Yeah.
these, I think if I'm asking these questions for myself, I know others
Hmm.
who are contemplating this
Right.
adventure because it's going to be an adventure one way
Oh, yeah.
or
Oh,
another.
yeah.
Is at least not where to go.
Yeah.
And speaking of now where to go, this business you have around helping others get prepared to embark on this lifestyle, I would love it if I could share my screen and go. Let's start with your website,
Sure.
and I'd love to for you to share. take us through a tour, and then what are some of the highlights for folks just like me who want to learn about this lifestyle and some of the things that are available to them by visiting your website? You okay with that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's do it for sure.
Excellent. So I love the miracles of modern technology. I am going to go to screen two, which is where we're at. And I'm going to go, there's my cheat sheet, but
Yeah.
here is the website. All right. So let me get that down here. So share with us, what are we looking at here? This is let me just go up to
Yeah,
the
so
top.
this is just a free resource that we put out. If you are just looking for destinations, there's some information about some favorite places that we've gone on there to help with trip planning. And that can be a little bit helpful. Trip planning as an RVer can be overwhelming because when
Mhm.
someone just says, "Hey, you can go anywhere in the country. Where would you like to go?" You think, "Wow, that's an amazing opportunity," but it could be almost
Sure.
too much to choose from. So some of our articles are written about destinations. There's just a general RVing category that is helpful for that. But oh yeah, I write a lot about Acadia. That's my favorite national park. If you can't tell.
I I have been to Acadia, and I know
Yeah.
somebody else that's their favorite park as well.
It's so special to us. We spent 2 summers there. But there's just some, and I like national parks a lot. You can tell that too. But
Yes.
some helpful information is under that.
Okay.
Then there, if you're just looking for general RVing information, that's under RV tab, and that is more of just a general guide to
Okay.
how to RV, and this is kind of like to get started. I didn't
Okay.
have a lot of resources to get started when we were looking into this.
Right.
Today, there's a lot online, a lot
Oh
of
yeah.
content creators, YouTube, short form. There's a lot. But back then, I had a
Right.
Facebook group that I took notes from to learn
Okay.
how to live the RV lifestyle and how to get started. And so I kind of wanted to create a resource that was a little easier. And then there's full time RV living. And that one
Okay.
is the most helpful, probably to most people
Okay.
that are looking for information through us. And that has
Okay.
a lot of articles about just the pitfalls and how to get around them,
Okay.
just general helpful information on getting started with RVing.
Okay.
Um, there's also a free guide that I created, and it's under freebies. And
Okay.
this free guide is to help people with camping reservations. The biggest thorn in any RVer side right now, whether you're a weekender or a full timer, is getting camping reservations. It's
I I can well, ever since COVID, that's been like the
yes,
biggest source. That's the COVID opened up a lot. It was bad, yes, but it opened up a lot
yes,
of opportunities. That's how I got into car camping, is
yeah,
I moved from Chicago to Las Vegas. I knew I wanted to get out into the desert, but
yeah,
I also know you have a lot of these parks now, you have to make reservations.
right.
Okay.
And it's tricky, especially the parks that like the state parks and the national parks are really tricky because everybody wants to camp in the pretty locations.
Right.
So we have a free guide there that is all of our tips and tricks on how to snag these reservations, even the ones that are sold out. We
Okay.
often stay at. So yeah, that's a little free resource there. Everything
Okay.
on the website is free, so it's just kind of a helpful
Okay.
little resource for everyone.
Very good. I can
Yeah.
imagine, you you probably should start a podcast. You probably have lots of stories available, just meeting people
Yes.
in the RV parks, and I
Oh,
just all their stories. I think that'd be entirely
right.
fascinating.
Honestly,
Okay.
Howard, we could probably have a whole podcast on all the mistakes that we have made
Okay. All right. We
because
can do that.
now I love to talk about RVing because we've done it for 10 years, but
Right.
we had no idea at all what we were doing. So we pretty much made all the mistakes in the beginning.
Right.
And we still mess up today, honestly. It's a learning curve that's a
It
little bit
happens.
steep. Yeah, it
Sure.
happens. And so there's all these funny stories
Okay.
related to
And
that for sure.
okay. And let's see, for our guest listeners who are going to visit the website, the adventure detour.com,
Mhm.
and all the pages have get your free guide and get the latest. And we also had, that was Pinterest. We're not going to go there. Sorry, Pinterest. We're not going to visit you today.
Too bad, Pinterest.
For some reason, it wants me to go there. But in
It
any case,
does. Wow.
okay. All right. Whatever. All right. So,
Yeah.
but you have a lot of reservation tips, and I think there was a way. I know I saw it. If folks want to subscribe. Oh yes, get the latest, stay in the loop with
Mhm.
our best travel tips sent directly. So you can
Yeah.
sign up with your name and email address, folks, and get the latest from Vanessa and Scott in your inbox. Now,
Yeah.
what obviously websites are websites, and but everything is social these days. What's your social preference? What are you finding the most value of having fun, sharing, people interacting with you?
We're on all the platforms, but we're most active on Instagram, and I
Okay.
love Facebook as well. A lot of people
Okay.
act like Facebook isn't so popular anymore, but I still love Facebook. So probably Instagram and Facebook. You can also our handle's the same on all of them. So at the Adventure Detour is
Okay.
also the same for YouTube and for TikTok as well. But we're not on those as
Okay.
often.
Okay.
I love Instagram. Instagram's kind of our
All right.
community, if you will, but Facebook too.
Okay. Now I'm gonna click on Instagram, and I have a feeling it's not gonna work, but there's a reason for that. Then we'll go to Facebook. But
Okay.
oh, sure enough, it worked.
Yes,
Usually
thanks.
I have the security set up, and it's like I have to do double authentication.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
hey, it worked.
It
So
did,
here,
and that's another way you can get our free guide is if you're on our Instagram and you go to our bio,
gotcha.
there's links for the free guide
Excellent.
too. But
Eh,
yeah, Instagram's a great way because we just showcase a lot of funny RV content, but also a lot of helpful tips and tricks. And of course, right now there's a whole lot of fun things
yeah,
about holidays in an RV and different things. But
sure. So
yeah, yeah.
somebody does has a Miss Pouty face going on there.
That's
Okay.
a funny. That's an RV funny for sure. I won't
Okay.
spoil it.
I love it. So I
Yeah.
am curious about with your daughter.
Uh-huh.
What's been her? If I was going to meet you guys at the RV park and have a
Yeah.
conversation with you and your husband, and it comes to your daughter, what is she going to say in like a 1 minute or less? How's she going to describe this adventure with mom and dad?
Oh man. Well, probably depends on the day with the teenager.
Yeah, true, true that.
Um,
Okay,
so the thing with kids in general, she's not unique in this,
right,
is that when kids are younger, they are really into this. Okay.
right,
Because they're like, I want to be a junior ranger at a national park and I want to earn all the badges and I want to go see and do all these things. And younger kids are super excited about it. And it
yeah,
kind of seems like just as they hit the preteen years and they go into the teen years, then they're a little bit less enthused. And that's just the way that it is because they're like, well, I
okay,
kind of want to be like everybody else. I want to have my friends with me all the time and I want to go
okay,
do my thing. And so I can't go do my thing when mom and dad have me on the road in a different state all the time. So
right,
it's a little bit more tricky as they
mhm,
get older. And so
okay,
it kind of just really depends on your kiddo's age and what your
gotcha,
family setup is like. But so that's one reason why we travel a lot slower now.
right,
And Florida is our home base because Central Florida is where all her buddies are located. After wintering here every year, we
right,
have a lot of
right,
people that we know in this area. So
okay,
that's kind of our home base, and we float around and then come back. So
okay.
it's a little bit of a slower compromise uh, now in the high school years than it was when she was younger, for sure.
Okay. Now I did see a little, fur baby here.
Yes, that is
Another
our
great
fur
way.
baby. Yes,
No,
he's
no,
a French bulldog, and we've had him a little over a year, about a year and a half. And I said I would never get a dog while we lived in an RV because many reasons why. You're tight on space, you're on the go all the time. I just said I would never do it, but lo and
right.
behold, here we are doing it.
There you go. There you go.
And I wouldn't regret it for a second. So
I love it.
it's worth it. Yeah.
I love
But
it. Yeah,
that's
I love
Oliver.
Oliver. Okay.
Yeah,
I love
he's a
these
sweetheart.
locations. In the locations, lots of humor,
Yes,
and
it's a hodgepodge of entertaining content, I think.
I love that. That's kind of cool. Really, very
Yeah.
cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Thank
And
you.
if let me go back. I'm gonna stop sharing and all right, we're back.
Yeah.
And what, as you look back, what would your younger self, what would your older self say to your younger self back in 2014? What would be one piece of advice you'd give yourself?
Oh, that's a great question. Just go for it.
Okay.
I I hate the what ifs. The what ifs just like hurt my heart. If you're
Hmm.
ever thinking about doing something and it just keeps nagging at you and you think, well, if I don't do this right now, I'm
Hmm.
going to be forever my life saying, "Well, what if we had gone on this crazy adventure? What if we let go of our stuff so we could have more time together and go all these places? Like, what if we would have gone for it?" And knowing that I would have felt that way had we not,
Hmm.
I think would just nagged me forever. So I'm
Okay.
really it as scary as it is to make a complete life change as it is to sell everything and go on the road. Most people that do it say, my regret is that I didn't do it sooner.
Right. Very
That's the
good.
number one thing that most full-time RVers say. Well, they also say it's much harder and more expensive than I planned, which I mentioned. But then they'll
Right.
say, my one regret is I didn't do it sooner. And I don't feel like we should have done it sooner, but I'm sure glad that we cast away and just went for it.
I love it. Most definitely. What do you think your husband would say?
Right.
Get a bigger truck.
Don't get a bigger truck. If we, that's a mistake we made. So yes and no. Like if I could start over again today,
Hmm.
it would be with a Class A motorhome and a Jeep. It would
Okay.
not be with a truck and a fifth wheel. We went that way because of budget and because of space. But now that I know what I know, it's a lot of work and I would have gone the other way.
Okay.
So
That's good to know.
yeah, that's what I would do today. It would still have to have bunk beds because of our daughter. But yeah, that's what I think that would probably be his big thing that he says because he's the one that drives, parks, maneuvers, and gets all stressed out over it.
Okay. What do you think your daughter would say has been the most fun or experience focused benefit that she's had just being out on the road? Because she started when she was
Right.
pretty young and now she's in high school. What would she say?
Mhm. Oh, definitely, probably that she has a love of history now. So this girl's always loved history, but when we started traveling, it's like that became her whole hobby or whole thing because now we're not just reading about a historical place in a book. We're showing up on a battlefield and learning about the Battle of Gettysburg while we're standing there and they're firing cannons and like you're
Hmm.
getting like a hands-on experience of our whole nation in history. And she's such a history lover anyway. But I think going to these locations that most of us would just read about in a book just really fired that up for her. So that's what she wants to do for a living now. But like, it's really funny, Howard. So, like, we'll watch the movie National Treasure together 'cause she loves National Treasure. But she can look at that movie and she's like, oh, I went there. I went there. I was at the Liberty Bell. I went there in DC. I looked at the Constitution. Like, she can say, I was at all of those places where
Hmm.
they were in that movie. And it's, to me, that's like a priceless thing. Yeah, I could have stayed in our dream house with all that stuff that nobody used or cared about and moved around and cleaned 5,000 times
Hmm.
or we could have experienced all this together as a family. So that's to me, that's priceless.
I love it. I love it.
Mhm.
I have one last questions before we get ready to head out.
Mhm.
Does your RV have a name?
Oh my gosh, I can't remember. I think yes, it does, and I'm drawing a blank for some reason. But
All right.
the truck is the Silver Sled,
The
and
Silver Sled.
oh,
Okay, good.
the Adventure Mobile. So the first fifth wheel was the Adventure Mobile. We had that
Okay.
one for the first 3 years on the road, and this one we've had for almost 7. And this one was the Adventure Mobile 2.0.
2.0. I love it. I love
Yeah.
it.
Our Solitude, which I love. I love this fifth wheel, by the way. I don't want to knock on fifth wheels. Fifth wheels are a little bit more work, but I
Right.
love this Solitude. It's been really good
E-
to us.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, it looks like a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
I can only imagine in the beautiful places you've seen. Vanessa, I really appreciate you spending the time with us today. It's been an absolute
Yes.
pleasure. I hope we get perhaps to do perhaps some more podcasting together because I think there's a lot of other stories here.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
for sure.
we did share the website, did a little tour, but again, for our listeners, if they're just coming in now, where should they go to learn more about you and Scott and your daughter and your little fur baby and
Yeah,
about the work that you're doing? Where should they go?
definitely. TheAdventureDetour.com is our website, and there's a free guide on there for
Hmm.
anyone that likes to take camping or RV camping. There's a work with us tab for any businesses that are interested in working with us. And then Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok, or we're on all of them at The Adventure Detour.
Excellent. Well, we will provide all of the backlinks to the website and social sites in our show notes, and looking forward to sharing in our show notes some photos that you'll share with us, or I can pull to my heart's content on Facebook, or and we'll also have the video up on our YouTube channel. Vanessa, it's been a pleasure. I'm so glad we finally were able to
Yeah,
reconnect and set a date and a time. It's been wonderful to get to know
thank
you. Thank
you.
you. Thank you for
Yeah, thank
spending
you so
time.
much, Howard. I appreciate it.
All right. Listen, stay in the line. We're going to do a very quick close, and you and I can have a final chat. Okay. All right, folks. We have just been chatting with Vanessa Russell. Her work is kind of centered around the Adventure Detour, which is the RV lifestyle, the full-time RV lifestyle that she, her husband, her daughter, and their little fur baby are living. And so they are definitely living their life to the fullest. And we learned a lot about the experience from those initial light bulb that went off back in 2014 to where they are today. And just really, it was wonderful kind of getting to know the experience and some of the questions that were answered for me. I'm sure they'll be answered for you about what does it mean to kind of live this lifestyle, and really go off and visit their webpage, the adventuredetour.com, and their social sites to learn more about how you might begin to contemplate going on a little detour in your lifestyle and going from the house to the condo, the apartment to an RV lifestyle. So definitely hope you take a visit to their website and do sign up for their freebies because there's a lot of great information there. As for us, you can find this episode on the Outdoor Adventure Series website. And this episode will probably be up before the end of the year. So looking forward to sharing this with you. You can find us on LinkedIn and Facebook on the Outdoor Adventure Series pages. We have our YouTube page, as well as we're on all of the major podcast directories. When you go out there, just search for Outdoor Adventure Series, and you can see this episode. Please like, comment, and share it with your friends, and we'd love to hear what you thought. Okay, folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, go out there, have a phenomenal day, and we look forward to having you join us on a future episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. Take care now.